How to survive a heart attack when no one is around to help. Imagine you are alone in a quiet house. Suddenly, a severe chest pain strikes, like an invisible hand is squeezing your heart. Your breathing becomes rapid, sweat pours down, your head spins. You know immediately this is not ordinary fatigue. It could be a heart attack. And the scariest part? There's no one around you. What would you do in the next 10 seconds? Did you know that just one wrong decision in this moment could prevent you from ever saying goodbye to your loved ones? According to the American Heart Association, nearly 9 out of 10 people who have a heart attack while alone do not survive. Not because they are weak, but because they don't know what to do in that critical life or death moment. But here's something incredible. With just 8 simple steps, your chances of survival can increase up to 92%. In this video, I will share real-life stories. Some people were saved by acting correctly in a split second, while others passed away simply because they missed a small detail. And one day, perhaps you or someone you love will need this knowledge to save a life. So what are those 8 steps? And the very first thing you should do the moment chest pain hits might surprise you. Step 1. Sit down with your back supported. When chest pain suddenly strikes, the first instinct for many is to try to stand up, reach for medicine, or grab a phone. But at that very moment, the risk of collapsing while moving around is very high. In the first minutes of a heart attack, blood pressure can drop sharply, the heart may beat irregularly, and even a small stumble can lead to a fatal fall. Do you want your already weakened heart to bear such a shock? The right thing to do is to sit down immediately, in a safe place with your back firmly supported by a chair with a backrest or against a solid wall. Sitting takes the extra burden off your heart as it no longer has to pump forcefully to keep your body balanced. Your head will feel less dizzy and you can stay alert longer. A cardiologist once told me about a patient in Texas who survived simply by sitting back in his familiar armchair instead of dragging himself to the door. Meanwhile, his neighbor collapsed in the kitchen while trying to stand for water. 2 lives, 2 outcomes, all because of one very small action. Have you ever wondered, if a heart attack struck right in your home, where would you choose to sit? In the living room? On the couch? Or against the wall next to your bed? And here's the thing, sitting down is only the first step. Once you've stabilized your posture, what you do next could determine whether your heart survives long enough for the emergency team to arrive. Can you guess what that action is?
Step 2. Chew aspirin if appropriate. There is something that may seem very small but can save your life during a heart attack: a single aspirin. But the key is not just taking it, you must chew it. Have you ever realized that even a tiny detail like how you take a medication can determine life or death? Listen to the story of a woman in California. In the middle of the night, her husband suddenly clutched his chest in severe pain. She remembered advice from a first aid training. Don't swallow it whole, chew the aspirin immediately. She quickly gave him a low-dose aspirin. He crushed it in his mouth, the bitter taste spreading. This allowed the medicine to be absorbed rapidly through the mucous membranes, thinning the blood and preventing a clot from further blocking the heart's blood flow. That small action helped him survive until the ambulance arrived. Unfortunately, many people still don't know. If you just swallow the aspirin whole, it has to pass through the digestive system and its effect will be much slower, sometimes too slow. But you also need to be careful. Aspirin is not for everyone. If you have had a stomach ulcer, a bleeding disorder, or an allergy to this medication, do not take it on your own. A tiny pill can be a lifesaver, but it can also be a double-edged sword if given to the wrong person. So, the question is, have you ever kept aspirin ready in your cabinet or right next to your bed? Do you realize that a single pill placed in the right spot could save an entire life? And After chewing the aspirin, what is the next step that truly determines whether the ambulance will arrive in time to save your heart?
Step 3. Call 911 and state your address immediately. During a heart attack, every second counts. But did you know that some people have called 911 and still weren't saved in time? The reason isn't that the ambulance was late. It's because they forgot a crucial detail, giving their address clearly at the very start of the call. I remember the story of a man living alone in the suburbs. In the middle of the night, he suffered a severe chest pain and hurriedly dialed 911. He tried to describe his symptoms, but the crushing pain made his breathing uneven. Before he could give his address, he collapsed, and the line went silent. The EMS team spent nearly 10 extra minutes locating him, and in those 10 minutes, his heart suffered irreversible damage. Doesn't it feel heartbreaking to know that a single short sentence could have changed everything? That's why when you call 911, always begin with a clear statement. I think I'm having a heart attack. My address is... Even if the line is lost afterward, the operator has enough information to send help straight to you. This is especially critical for people living in rural areas where GPS signals may not always be accurate. Do you think that in a moment of panic you could recite your address clearly? In reality, many people fail to remember their own house number when simulating the scenario. That's why it's wise to write it down, place it near a landline, or save it on your phone's lock screen. It's one of the simplest yet most effective ways to protect yourself in a life-or-death situation. So after calling 911 and making sure the medical team knows exactly where to go, what should you do next to ensure they aren't blocked at your door?
Step 4. Open the door and make keys or code easily visible. Now imagine this. The ambulance arrives. The paramedics are standing right at your door, but they can't get in. It may sound like a joke, but this has happened countless times. And you know what? Some patients didn't survive, not because the ambulance was late, but simply because the door was locked. A paramedic in Arizona once shared that he and his colleague arrived within minutes, but the house had double locks. No one nearby had a key, and they were not allowed to force the door without police present. They had to wait nearly 7 more minutes for assistance. 7 minutes is far too long for a heart that's already struggling. Doesn't it feel upsetting to realize that a life can sometimes be stopped by just a lock? The solution is simple, and you can prepare today. After calling 911, if you still have the strength, open the front door. If not, leave a key in a visible spot, like in the mailbox, under the doormat, or behind a potted plant near the entrance. For coded locks, write the code on a paper, stick it on the door with the note, "For EMS." An elderly woman in Phoenix survived precisely because of such a small piece of paper. The paramedics were able to open the door in seconds and be by her side. What about you? Have you ever considered placing your key or code somewhere easy for emergency responders to find? And once you've ensured the rescue team can enter, what position should you take to relieve your heart while waiting for them to arrive?
Step 5. Recline at 45 degrees and elevate your legs slightly. Have you ever thought that simply changing your body position could mean the difference between life and death? During a heart attack, many people instinctively lie flat on the floor, thinking it will make them feel better. In reality, that is one of the most dangerous mistakes. A cardiologist once shared the story of 2 patients. The first, as soon as her chest tightened, lay flat immediately. Within minutes, she began to experience severe shortness of breath, dizziness, and a rapid drop in blood pressure. The second patient was different. Having been guided in advance, she leaned back about 45 degrees into a sofa and lightly elevated her legs with a pillow. This allowed blood to return to the heart naturally, prevented lung compression, and kept her alert until the ambulance arrived. The circumstances were the same, but the outcome was entirely different. just because of posture. Leaning back 45 degrees, not too upright, not completely flat, is how you reduce the strain on a weakened heart. Elevating your legs slightly with a pillow, rolled towel, or any available object helps blood circulate more efficiently. This isn't complicated knowledge, it's a lesson drawn from thousands of real emergency cases. Isn't it astonishing that sometimes survival depends on such small details? So, if a heart attack strikes right now, do you have a pillow or suitable chair within reach? And once you've stabilized your position, how can you alert your loved ones even if you no longer have the strength to make a phone call? Step 6. Send a short message to 2 to 3 family members. When your heart is fighting for life, you may not have the strength to talk on the phone for long. Yet, sometimes a simple, brief message can become a lifeline. Can you believe that some people have survived just because of a few words on a screen? An elderly woman living alone in California once recounted, "That night I had severe chest pain and I called 911. But I feared I might faint before my son knew what was happening, so I quickly typed a message, 'Heart attack, call immediately.' The message went out at 3 a.m. By the time the ambulance brought her to the hospital, her son was already there waiting. Can you imagine how he would have felt if he hadn't received that message? The truth is, during a heart attack, there isn't much time to type each word carefully. That's why doctors recommend preparing an emergency contact group and saving a pre-written message in advance. With just one tap, it can be sent immediately. Chest pain, called 911. If I don't reply, come to my address. Short, clear, and potentially life-saving. So, have you ever prepared such a message on your phone? Have you added your children, grandchildren, or a trustworthy neighbor to your emergency contacts? And once the message is sent, how will you maintain calm, preventing panic from pushing your fragile heart to the edge?
Step 7. Controlled deep breathing. 4-1-6. Do you know what causes many people to collapse faster during a heart attack, even after they've managed to call 911? It's not just the heart under strain, it's panic. When fear takes over, the heart races, blood pressure swings, breathing becomes rapid, and all of this exhausts an already weakened heart even more. Have you ever felt your heart pounding wildly just because of worry? During a heart attack, that sensation becomes exponentially more dangerous. But there's a simple weapon you always carry with you, your breath. Doctors call it the 4-1-6 breathing exercise. You inhale slowly through your nose for 4 seconds, hold for 1 second, then exhale very slowly through your mouth for 6 seconds, as if gently blowing out a candle. Repeat 5 to 10 times and you'll feel the panic ease, your heartbeat stabilize, and you'll maintain the precious clarity to wait for the emergency team. A cardiologist in Florida once said, "If there's one thing humans can control when nothing else is controllable, it's their breath." Indeed, your breath is the bridge between body and mind. And during a heart attack, it can be the lifeline that buys you minute by minute, second by second. Have you ever tried this breathing technique when anxious or stressed? If one day you must rely on it to keep your heart beating, would you remain calm enough to remember and apply it? But then there's another so-called trick floating around the internet called cough CPR, where you cough forcefully to resuscitate yourself. Is it truly a lifesaver or just a dangerous illusion? Step 8. Myth-bust cough CPR. Perhaps you've heard someone say, if you're having a heart attack, cough forcefully, continuously, to keep your heart beating. It sounds logical, even hopeful. Just a simple action could save yourself. But what's the reality? This is one of the most dangerous misunderstandings in cardiac emergencies. Major heart associations, including the American Heart Association, have repeatedly stated that cough CPR, meaning forceful coughing while pressing the wrist, can only be applied in a hospital setting under continuous monitoring and doctor's supervision. In that controlled environment, it may be used to maintain a heartbeat for a few seconds while waiting for defibrillation. But at home, alone and unsupervised, trying to cough forcefully can make you faint faster, losing critical seconds of life. I once heard the story of an elderly man who, during severe chest pain, remembered this tip and tried to cough continuously. Within seconds, he lost consciousness. Fortunately, a neighbor discovered him in time and called for help. But would you risk your life on such a random trick?
The safest and most effective step. The truth is, the safest and most reliable action you can take is not coughing repeatedly, but calling 911, staying on the line, and following the dispatcher's instructions precisely. If you lose consciousness, they will immediately guide someone nearby to perform CPR. That's the real life-saving CPR. So, stop trusting viral internet tricks. Don't let a single mistake cost you your life. Instead, prepare properly. And there's something else equally important. Besides the steps you should take, there are also things you must never do when a heart attack is suspected. Do you want to know what they are? Things you should never do. During a heart attack, there are not only actions you must take immediately, but also behaviors you should absolutely avoid. Sadly, many people have lost their lives due to seemingly harmless actions that were actually extremely dangerous. First, never drive yourself to the hospital. Many patients collapse behind the wheel, causing accidents for themselves and others. If you think, I can drive a few minutes, remember that even a single fainting episode can end everything instantly. Second, don't wait to see if the symptoms go away. A heart attack is not a common cold that will self-resolve. Every passing minute means heart tissue dying from lack of blood. Would you let your heart permanently lose its ability to function just because you hesitated? Third, don't lie flat if you're struggling to breathe. That posture only makes you more likely to faint. Remember step 5, lean back 45 degrees and elevate your legs slightly. Finally, don't drink alcohol, smoke, or eat anything at this moment. All of these only add strain to your heart. Some think a sip of alcohol will dilate vessels, but in reality, it worsens the situation. Daily prevention matters. Beyond emergencies, remember daily prevention. Walk 30 minutes, reduce salt, quit smoking, limit alcohol. Don't wait for your heart to warn you before making changes. Do you want to look back and regret waiting until it's too late?
Putting it all together. So how do we close the loop and remember that just the first 10 seconds can decide a life? Do you recall the question I asked at the beginning? If you only have 10 seconds when a heart attack strikes and no one is around, what would you do? Now you have the answer. You would sit down immediately, chew aspirin if available, call 911 and state your address clearly, and open the door for emergency personnel. You would lean back 45 degrees, send a quick text to loved ones, maintain calm with the 4-1-6 breathing, and most importantly, ignore dangerous myths like cough CPR. These 8 steps may seem small, but they have saved thousands of lives across the United States. And the amazing part? Just learning them once gives you a far higher chance of survival if the day ever comes. Don't wait for the first chest pain to start preparing. Write your address on a paper near your phone. Save emergency contacts on your phone. Keep aspirin visible and share what you've learned with family. You never know who might need it. One small share can save a life. And now, I want to hear from you. If you truly believe preparation is the key to surviving a heart attack alone, leave a comment. I choose to be prepared. Your words could motivate someone to act immediately today. In the next video, I'll show you how to recover and protect your heart after a heart attack, from nutrition habits to gentle exercises that strengthen your heart day by day. Do you want to learn those secrets? Then I'll see you in the next video.